Okay, hey guys, I'm going to be ranking the entire series of Unfortunate Events. Which book was my favorite, which book is my least favorite. I think you guys should already know which one my favorite is, and you might even already know which one my least favorite is if you watched the two vlogs where I read the entire series of Unfortunate Events. However, I will officially be ranking them. So what is the series of Unfortunate Events? The series of Unfortunate Events is a 13-book series which follows the Baudelaire orphans. You find out they are orphans in the first book, and they are sent to live with this. So in the first book, they are sent to live with this guardian named Count Olaf, who is distantly related to them. It's something about like third cousin 4 times removed, or fourth cousin 3 times removed, something like that, which I think removed means by marriage. So like distantly related to them, but not even a little bit genetically related to them. And so Count Olaf ends up being like this evil guy who wants to steal their fortune. And so this is that's basically what this series is about. Disclaimer, this series is very depressing. There are several murders, there are evil plots, there is kidnapping, and child abuse. Also, all the adults are useless. So, there will be spoilers in this entire video for the book series and kind of the movie, which follows the first 3 books, and the and the Netflix series. I haven't actually finished the Netflix series, but the spoilers of that will mainly be about the Vile Village. Alright, so, the books in order of chronological order are The Bad Beginning, which I gave 5 stars. The Reptile Room, which I gave 4 stars. The Wide Window, which I gave 3 stars. The Miserable Mill, which I gave 4 stars, which is actually kind of interesting because when I read this series, I didn't particularly like this one. The Austere Academy, which is the 5th one, which I gave 5 stars. The Rat's Elevator, which is the 6th one, which I gave 3 stars. The 7th one is The Vile Village, which I gave 4 stars. The 8th one, which I actually wrote correctly, I thought I got them wrong, but the 8th one is The Hostile Hospital, which I gave 4 stars. The 9th one is The Slippery Slope, which I gave 5 stars, which is also really surprising because when I read the series when I was 8, I didn't particularly care for this one either. The Grim Grotto, which I gave 4... Oh, wait. No. Guys, I skipped one. The 9th one is The Carnivorous Carnival, which I gave 4 stars. And that seems about right. The 10th one is The Slippery Slope, which I gave 5 stars. I did really, really love this one, which surprised me, as you guys heard. The 11th one is The Grim Grotto, which I gave 4 stars. The 12th one is The Penultimate Peril, which I gave 3 stars. And the 13th one is called The End, which I gave 5 stars. Also, this is the first book I owned in this series. I remember picking it up before I owned the rest of the series and being really confused, so I set it back down. So there is that. This is also the only book that has 14 chapters. So an interesting thing that he did, which I did not notice when I was 8 years old reading this series, was 1 through 12 all have 13 chapters. There are 13 books. This is like unlucky, right? But the Baudelaire, or not the Baudelaires, the 3rd one has 14 chapters, which kind of seems to imply the end of the series of Unfortunate Events. So, now we come to the ranking. The first book, my favorite book in this entire series, which might not surprise you if you watch the vlogs, but in general is book number 5, The Austere Academy. So in the Austere Academy, the Baudelaires are sent to Prufrock Preparatory School, where Violet is assigned to classroom 1, I believe, with Mr. Yes, with Mr. Remora, and Klaus is sent to room number 2 with Mrs. Bass. Mr. Remora likes telling stories while eating bananas, and his stories are not particularly interesting and don't really have much to do with anything. For example, he'll tell a story about going to the grocery store, what he bought, and when he went home. That is the entire sum of his stories. Klaus, with Mrs. Bass, measures things. She is obsessed with the metric system, and so he also doesn't learn anything. However, the reason I love this book isn't even Count Olaf's plot. I loved the Quagmires. So you meet the Quagmire triplets. However, quickly Quagmire is believed to be dead. And so we really only meet Duncan and Isadora, who are triplets but are constantly called twins. Their friendships with the Baudelaires is amazing. I love their interactions and I love their bravery. I adore the Quagmires. I do adore the Baudelaires as well, but I loved the Quagmires in this book particularly. I kind of forgot to mention, but Sunny is a baby. She's somewhere between an infant and a toddler. I think she's like 1 in this. And so she is a secretary to Vice Principal Nero. The school has very stupid rules and all of that. Count Olaf ends up sneaking in as a gym teacher, and he makes the orphans, Violet, Sunny, and Klaus, the Quagmires are also orphans as well, run laps around, and he's tiring them out so they'll fail so they can eventually be homeschooled by him. How this gets his fortune, I'm not sure, or how this gets him the fortune, I'm not 100% sure, but it does. So I do love the interactions between the Baudelaires and the Quagmires, and while Olaf's plot is not the most evil, it is confusing. Like you don't know what's going on, and it's fun to learn and figure out what he's going with. It is nice to learn with them. Also, the Quagmires get kidnapped at the end of this, and it's sad and I hated it. It's like a good way to continue having the Quagmires in the series. So this was my favorite. So I'll put this right here. My second favorite was the book that started it all, The Bad Beginning. And I already kind of told you what happened in this one. They go to Count Olaf, and Count Olaf is evil, and he abuses them. He slaps Klaus. He locks Sunny in a cage to force Violet to pretend marry him, which turns into an actual marriage. However, she escapes him by signing with her left hand instead of her right. So, this is an amazing start to the series. It sets up Olaf's cruelty and his villainy well, and it does show the uselessness of the adults within the Baudelaires' lives, including Mr. Poe. Mr. Poe is a banker. For some reason, bankers are in charge of setting up orphans with, guardians, and he's practically useless, and he always gets them in bad situations, and he never believes them. But it's a good beginning to this series, and I adored it. So number 3 is actually The Slippery Slope. Did I tell you the series is by Lemony Snicket? It's by Lemony Snicket. I loved this one. So at the end of the Carnivorous Carnival, Violet and Klaus are separated by Sunny, and Sunny is stuck with Olaf by herself. They are trying to rescue her. This is where we meet Quigley Quagmire. He survived the fire. which is set up in the hostile hospital where they find out there was a survivor of the fire. However, it is not their parents like they expected. It is the third Quagmire sibling, Quigley Quagmire. And I love Quigley in this book. I do believe Violet and Quigley kiss, so that's really cool too. Overall, this one's really fun. They're stuck in the mountain. It's cold. They're trying to get to Sunny. And they learn some more about the VFD. And I loved this one. So I love the fear within this episode of the Baudelaires' lives because they're separated. They're now truly alone. They're also supposedly murderers, but they're not. It's also kind of part of this discussion of noble versus evil. Like, so there seems to be this argument of, yeah, we've done bad things. Are we now villains like Olaf? Well, but Violet says they did them for noble reasons. So are they noble? Like Jock Snicket, who I will mention when I talk about the Vile Village. It's very, very... So there is that. My fourth favorite book is actually the end of the series, which is the end. So I thought this was so this one, they're with Olaf. So I'm telling you basic plots of each of the books. However, I'm telling you the plots out of order. They end up on a boat with Olaf after the events of the penultimate peril. And they get in a storm, and they end up getting stranded on this island with this guy named Ishmael and this colony of people on this island no one knows about. And Olaf ends up dying. A girl named Kit Snicket ends up dying after giving birth to a baby girl named Beatrice. So, this is the perfect ending for this series. However, there are still things left in the open, which I typically don't enjoy in books. In fact, the Delirium trilogy I hate because it doesn't end neatly. There is not a good ending. I enjoyed this, though. So we have seen Sunny grow up a bit. Now, she's not so much like... We have seen her develop, but it's not so much as, she's changed. It's just she's grown from being a baby to a toddler. This also ends the discussion of noble versus evil, and it is determined they are noble enough. They've done bad things, but they did them for good reasons, I believe, and they felt bad about them. So they are noble enough. So there's that one. My fifth favorite one is actually the Vile Village. Part of this is, in fact, because of Jock Snicket, and another part of this is also because of Jock Snicket being depicted in the Netflix series. The Netflix series has made Jock Snicket more important than he was necessarily in this book, and it also didn't make him a complete dutterhead like it did in Midnight's Back, like it did in the book. But this one I enjoyed. So we do get more Quagmire and Baudelaires interactions. I do love Hector. Hector is their guardian, and he's he has some very social anxiety, specifically with the people who are in charge of this village. In this book, they are sent to this village called the VFD, and it's the Village of Foul Devotees. And so they've learned about the VFD from the Quagmires in book 5. However, this is not the correct VFD. You'll find a lot of misleading VFDs. So in this one, it is the Village of Foul Devotees. They are forced to live with... They're destined to live with Hector, and they are forced to do all the chores. So this village kind of has this, it takes a village to raise a child mentality. So they're, instead of, actually raising them, they're sent to do chores. They do find the Quagmires, and they're in a beak, and they talk to the Quagmires. Not really talk, but the Quagmires send some clues by sending little notes on the crows who live in this village. The Quagmires are rescued in this one, and they're sent to, or they stay with Hector in a hot air balloon, basically. I love Jock Snicket, but particularly the Jock Snicket that was depicted in the Netflix series. However, it does have a sad ending. He does die, and it does make it really sad. So my sixth favorite book is The Carnivorous Carnival. In The Carnivorous Carnival, they have just escaped this hospital, and they escaped by hiding in the trunk of Count Olaf's car. They're in the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere to run and hide. They have no escape, so they dress up as freaks, and they join this carnival. Sunny is a wolf baby, and she's called Chabo, and she pretends to attack people. And Klaus and Violet are like living clothes that are really big, and so they're like a two-headed freak. This is the beginning of the discussion of deeper levels of determining one's level of goodness, deeper themes of determining one's level of goodness. We kind of started in the hostile. So we get like these bad circumstances that become worse and worse. It was a very good read. It was pretty fun. It was a bit bigger. It's the start of the bigger books in the series too. Next I have The Reptile Room. I love The Reptile Room for Uncle Monty. Let's have a moment of silence. Rip Uncle Monty. So it's not the best plot, and I feel like Olaf's plot was a little dumb. I feel like this should have been seen through very easily. However, it was not. So Uncle Monty kind of sees through them, but he thinks he's like a spy for this society he's in of researchers. However, he's not. He's Count Olaf, so I thought like he should have been found out, but that's not how that works. So, 8 was the Grim Grotto. So the two characters that you meet in this is Wintershims and Fiona. Fiona is the niece of Wintershim, who's the captain of the submarine that they end up in. And so in this, they're like in the submarine, and they end up going to this grotto to find the sugar bowl, which is like a main and central part of the plot starting in the hostile hospital. But Fiona and Wintershims just annoyed me, and I didn't like the fact that Fiona betrayed them. However, I do like Fiona and Ferdinand, who's the hook end and their siblings. It was a good kind of twist in this book. Other than that, it was kind of average, but I still enjoyed it. So my 9th favorite book is The Miserable Mill. I will say it's not the best, but the science of hypnotism in this is interesting. So in this book, they're sent to they're sent to this owner of the mill. They're forced to work in it, and Klaus ends up getting hypnotized, and he's trying to cause all these accidents. I did, however, enjoy the aspect of Violet having to save Klaus. And Sunny was there too, but Sunny at this point was a little too young to be doing any saving. So, my 10th favorite book in the series, or the 10th book in this ranking, is The Hostile Hospital. I've mentioned this several times. This book, they end up running away from VFD, where they're suspected of being murderers. They join another VFD, which is Volunteers Fighting Disease, but really all they do is sing and hand out balloons. Overall, it was pretty average compared to the others. It wasn't the most interesting of all of them, and sorry, my cat moved this. And I did enjoy it. It was a nice move on to the other books. Oh, he's knocking stuff over. However, I didn't enjoy it. And it also kind of switched up what happened in the 4th book, where Klaus and Sunny now have to save Violet. So, the next book on this list, my number 11 spot, goes to the 3rd book, The Wide Window. Aunt Josephine, So they go to live with this, like, their Aunt Josephine, who lives by this lake, but she's afraid of everything. I found her incredibly annoying. But I did kind of like the fact that all of her fears do in fact come true. So that was kind of interesting. So my second to last, least favorite book is their Ersatz Elevator. Honestly, this one was a little boring until the end. So this one, they go to live with Esme and Jerome Squalor. Esme is all about what's in, what's popular, what's great, and Jerome's kind of more about taking care of the children, but Esme's not, and Jerome's a little bit of a pushover. It was a bit boring until the end. Esme was a good twist. She ends up actually being, like, Count's secret girlfriend, and she's, like, cheating on Jerome, so, like, poor Jerome. But, like, honestly, he could do better. But he does need to grow a backbone. Also, you do see the Quagmires briefly in this book where they go down a elevator. That's not actually an elevator, it's just an elevator shaft, which is actually a secret passage. My least favorite book, which y'all should not be surprised about if you watch the vlog, is The Penultimate Peril. This one, in general, I was just bored. Nothing really happened. Everyone's useless. They do set fire to, like, this Hotel de Yuma. And the Sugar Bowl is involved in this, but I think it ends up getting lost. And, like, no one can ever use it again. It just, in general, was boring. So that is my ranking of the 13 books in the series of Unfortunate Events. I hope you liked. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment if you want to.